Hi, I'm Stefan, the BMW DIY guy, and are you wondering about tools and the tools you need to do these jobs yourself? Let's talk Sonic tools. Alright y'all, so I want to talk about something a little bit different today, and it's not one of my typical DIYs, but it's actually how you do the DIYs. Now, I get questions all the time, either in person or social media or direct chat or YouTube, about all the various different tools you're going to need to do these various projects. And I always have them listed in my video description, but that doesn't answer what kind of tools or where to get them. Now, you've got, of course, a million different options out there, from the really, really cheap bargain basement, they're going to break very, very quickly, through the extremely expensive that might be too much if you really are a DIY person or a weekend warrior, or you're just not going to see the value. I really believe in good tools, and I've gotten some really good tools over the years, and I find that I am willing to invest if it's something I'm going to use a lot. But I'm also finding, and I'm going to show you some really poor tools here in just a second. I also started out with the little 1995 Toolkit box, some basic sockets and a wrench, from the hardware store that I've used for way too many years, and it's starting to break. I have snapped sockets, I've broken the wrench a couple of times, and I'm slowly been piecing all of those pieces back in. But it doesn't answer that bigger question, is there a better way to approach this? Is there a better set of tools you could potentially get, and even brand, as you look to either start right, or you start to replace the ones that you have, which is where I am. So I'm actually going to show you my toolbox for once, because I want to show you some of the aspects, and we're going to be looking at Sonic tools today. So not only at their basic starter kit, but which also includes their tray system, which is really, really cool, and how you could potentially start to integrate these in. But I'm going to show you my toolbox first. So let's take a look at that. All right, so I want to show this off a little bit, and it isn't to show the toolbox, because I had one of those loaf of bread sized toolboxes for probably 15 years, and it was only as I started to outgrow it that I really felt like I needed something, and I got really lucky and found this big toolbox for really, really cheap. But what I do want to show is just how your tools start to pile up. I mean, and look at this drawer. I mean, this is, if I didn't know where everything was, no one else could find it. I mean, all of the stuff is starting to mix together. I'm going to show you my first starter socket and wrench set, kit here in just a second. But as you can see, I just have a huge mix of tools. They're everything from some tools that honestly are older than I am. I mean, really, truly older than I am, because I inherited them from family, up to things that broke and I just filled them in over time, to some gifts of some tools that really aren't all that great. So I've been really looking to evaluate what I need to do to upgrade my tools. And so I took a look at Sonic tools. So by comparison, let me grab my no-name brand socket set, and we're going to walk through that first. All right, y'all. So let me just show you this really quick, because if this doesn't make you laugh, it should. I mean, this toolkit I bought probably 20 years ago for like $19.95 from a little hardware store. It was the best I could afford. It was the best I could get. And I've broken all of these sockets. I've got a couple that are cracked in here as a mismatched 10 millimeter because, well, I lost a 10 millimeter, which, you work on European cars, you lose them all the time. Some of these tools I've never really actually used so much because they're really soft, and this really is not very good. And even though it looks relatively intact, many of the pieces have been replaced. I've broken more pieces of this than I care to mention. And it really was the best I could do at the time. So as I've been looking not only to replace some of my existing tools with better, but at the same time with this question that I get all the time of, what should I buy if I'm just starting? So let me grab the Sonic toolkit, their starter kit that you can get, and let's compare. All right, y'all, so this is a fantastic example, and actually I'm really glad that they included this foam tray with this as well. And I'm going to explain why that's so cool here in just a second. But if you go out to Sonic Tools USA, you're going to find this starter kit. So you've got an extension, a 10 millimeter, you have a hex bit as well, you've got another 10 millimeter socket, 10 millimeter wrench, screwdriver, ratcheting wrench, and a good pair of pliers. And this is such a great place to start. And number one, it gives you a really basic set of tools that are going to get you through most things. But secondarily, it's going to give you a sense of the actual quality of the tools themselves. I've spent a lot of money on tools over the years, and you begin to understand, you'd almost feel it. You can feel when it's a little bit better. You can feel higher quality. So for example, when we take a look at the wrench, it's really nice and solid. It's got a good grip on it. And then of all things, and this may seem like a trivial way to measure, but I actually listen to the wrench. And the one thing that's nice about it is that if it clicks a lot, and let me explain it. It's probably a simplistic thing to explain, but this means that you only have to turn the wrench just barely for it to lock. That means if you're in a really tight space, you don't have to make a big turn before the wrench locks. You just make a little turn. So you can ratchet away and turn a socket with very, very small motion, which is, you know, as we work underneath our cars and in the engine bays, that's really important. Now, the other thing that was really handy about this, and why I'm sure why they included it, is because when you actually start to look into your drawers, like we look here, it's just a mess, right? Everything's just piled in here. So you want to start to organize. These foam trays, you can customize and start sliding in either into your toolbox, either it's big or small. You could even potentially keep this on your workbench and slot all the tools into place. And this is, I mean, only the beginning of tool organization that they have, right? But as I look at my socket and extension drawer, which I showed you just a second ago, I mean, it's just overflowing. If I find something, dig, 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 dig. I have to dig through with it. Now, one of the other things that really stood out for me when I was evaluating, because I mean, look, there are a ton of tool companies out there. There's a lot that you can get that are just generic. You know, if you go out to any search engine and look for tools, you're going to find an infinite number of brands. But the one thing I like about these guys is they're made in the United States. Number two, they actually have an entire BMW shop that switched to their solution. So there's an entire BMW dealership. It's up on their website, up on Sonic's website, that talks about how they redid their entire service bay with Sonic's, you know, cases, with their tool cases, all of their foam inserts, all of their tools, because their organization system works really well, and it was the right way to go. All right, so quick comparisons here. Now, ironically enough, this is actually the box that it came in, but it has this great picture. If you can see how all of the tools are laid out. On the back side of the box, you actually have a picture from the BMW dealership back in their service bay of all of their cases and how all of their tools are set up. It's really impressive. But as you look at this, the price of this kit is very, very reasonable, and it's a good place to start. I'm going to use these wrenches as a good comparison here in just a second. But when you start to look at it and you look at weight of construction, right? It's actually surprisingly heavy, which tells me it's a little bit better metal. It's not cheap. I've cracked a lot of cheap sockets where you put them on and you're just cranking that torque on and just crack right down the side. You wonder why your socket's not holding, and you find the big split. Now, the other thing that I really like about this is how tight that is, right? Super tight. I love how tight that is. So this retention is really, really strong. Really solid connections there, which I really like. Same thing here. When you put this on, it connects together really, really well. And again, you have this depression tab on it. So what's different, now I could pull out my cheap wrench, but it's just held on by pressure right here. It's just a little pressure clip. In this case, if you notice, this actually has a release on it. So you press it in to put it on more easily, and now it doesn't come off, right? I mean, my socket just came off, but my extension, or if my socket was here, would not just come off. Again, I've had so many of these where you pull on them and they fall off in your engine bay, or you're reaching up with 3 extensions and it falls off your wrench. Takes time, you might lose tools, you got to do it all over again. But, and again, that really fine tooth, right? So it's a very small, very finely toothed gear in there, which means you only have to turn a little bit to get traction, which is going to be really nice. You don't have to have a big turn to get it to actually turn and ratchet. Okay, so I like that a lot. Now, here's a fantastic example in comparisons of tools, right? Pair of pliers is a pair of pliers. No, not so much. So this is a pair of pliers from my local hardware store. I needed one. I just went down. And so a couple of things in this. One, you can see how it's just a simple bolt that goes straight through with a nut right here. So if you use these a lot, this nut can start to loosen up. These will get really loose. I've actually had pliers fail. It's the reason why I had to go buy another pair. This is the best I could get at the time from my local hardware store. Well, again, look at the difference just in visual construction between the two. Okay, so now not only do you have larger and better grips all the way around, they have good texture on them, so if your hands are oily or greasy, or if you're trying to get a good grip on them, and including it has this guard for your hand, so your hand's not going to potentially get up into the blade area or the bit area. So also, see how there's no exposed nut, no just simple bolt pushed through with a nut on the other side. You're never going to have to worry about that. You're never going to have that nut's never going to back off, right? So that's really, really nice. Now, these are still a little stiff because I haven't used them yet. But they're a little bit heavier. They have a good feel. The construction is a lot better. You can tell they've got to have a better long nose on them between a coarse grip and a tight grip here at the end. It has an integrated cutter right here in the middle, as you can see, which is fairly common. This one sort of does. I mean, again, but look by comparison. Look at this big clunky two-edge cutter that comes through, where this actually has blades on each side. So if you had to snip off some wires or snip something off, you wouldn't have to go get a pair of snips. You could just use pliers that you already have on hand. So that alone right there, I'm impressed by. It's a significantly better tool. All right, y'all, so I hope this gave you a good idea of what the Sonic kind of introduction or sample toolkit will give you, and I actually think it's a good place to start if you're looking to start to build out your tools. Like I said, in my case, I'm gonna look to supplement. I'm also gonna be strongly evaluating their foam systems. I might even be looking at their workbench setups and their tool cases and all the rest to completely revamp what I'm doing. But at the same time, don't let that intimidate you. If you're looking to do this DIY work, a good set of tools, you know, basic set of sockets, good wrenches, screwdriver or two, and a pair of pliers or two, and you're gonna be good in almost every single case. And I think Sonic Tools is a great way to do that. So if you're gonna look and do some of these projects, get good tools that are gonna last, and that great cross between, again, quality and value. I hope you found this useful. If you have any other questions or anything I can help with, make sure to let me know. If you can, please click subscribe and the little alarm bell. It makes a huge difference to my channel, as I have a ton of content coming that I cannot wait to bring to you, and I'll see you on my next video.